E360 TV proudly presents Messages of Inspirational Stories TV show. Live streaming now to millions of devices around the world on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook live streaming. Our shows are available video on demand on these channels. And we broadcast daily, Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on these channels. On Mondays, Expanding Your Business. Tuesdays, Natural Health and Wellness. On Wednesdays, we cover mentoring our youth. And on Thursdays, our new show, Ideas Worth Knowing. And on Fridays, Women in Leadership. To be able to watch our television show on your favorite device, please go to e360tv.com and download the app for your favorite device. Brought to you by our producers and hosts, Jim Grant and Donna Guinois. Along with our host, Beata Severin Reed and Emerson Brantley. Supported by our admin team of Michaela Vidal and Gaia Guinois Balconi Leda. And welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. I just shared with Adam that I may have a little bit of computer issues here with the internet. If I do, I'll be right back and all those wonderful things. I'll go down to the ATM, pick up some more quarters, and plug them in. But our show is brought to you. Our show is brought to you by the good guys at the 6minutewebinar.com. The 6-minute webinar enables you to be able to give a presentation to one person on one single topic, all within 6 minutes or less. You have an introduction, a body, a close, and a call to action. Because when someone contacts you, they want to know one thing. What can you do for them for the reason why they contacted you? Whether it's coaching, whether it's pain, regardless. They don't care about all the other things that you do. It doesn't matter. They just want to know if you can help them. And that's what the 6-minute webinar is able to do. We're also brought to you by our Ideas Worth Knowing. You can go to their website there, ideasworthknowing.com. You can get your 10 complimentary library books there, and they are complimentary. You get a card there and all that. So I'm joined with our new host here on this Wednesday, Mr. Adam Green. He forgot to shave today, but ladies and gentlemen, we're going to forgive him for that. You know, just Adam, how you doing,
folks?
Sir?
Always good to see everybody, and also good to see you, Jim. I
Well, thank
appreciate
you.
the appeal to my non-shaven looks today. It is a weekday.
Well, that's
and
like
we are
that song.
working hard.
That's like that song by, what was his name? I can't think of his name right now. Just like a natural man. That was a good tune back in the 70s.
That
That's
sounds
before your
familiar.
time.
I might be too young for the old dusty books to remember those kind of records. But but definitely one of those things is not like the other. That's also a good song.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Lou Rawls was a gentleman that sang that. He had a deep voice, just like a natural man. He says, I don't want no gold watch for working 50 years from 9 to 5. That song's for all the renegades out there and entrepreneurs who walk to the beat of their own drum. They will love that one. Today,
It definitely reminds me of Dolly Parton and her 9 to 5 song.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And today we're bringing back a guest that we had on a previous show because we had some computer issues, a lot of just computer issues. I'll leave it at that, because his story is so unique, and he was very instrumental in your life, was he not, Adam?
Absolutely, yes. We were able to attend a class together. I was sitting more in the back of the room while he was in the front facing everyone. So when we were able to kind of interact with each other was afterwards when we were all done with classes And I asked for a cup of coffee with him at some point, and he agreed to it. And
Hmm.
I was very shocked myself because, I mean, who do you hear out here, and anybody, who do you hear going out and having coffee with your teachers from way back when, right? You know,
Oh, yeah.
it's not really a thing people do, but I mean, when you have friends and you have good people around you, you
Hmm.
can do anything, and that is part of today's message of our inspiration is that we create this environment for each other to strive and achieve what we want in our dreams, you know, our goals.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and never to give up on that stuff.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I met him,
Absolutely. Hmm.
and he met me. He's my teacher, my AP US history teacher from junior year, and his name is Dennis Rock.
Okay. Well, let's invite Dennis to the show and let's say welcome to Dennis. Let me adjust the cameras here. And hi, Dennis. How you doing?
Great, Jim. How are you?
Doing real good. So glad to have you back, and so glad to have good combo with you, audio, video, and all those things, because you've got a tremendous story. I'd like for you to take just about 1 minute, or no more than that, and just share a little bit about who you are, your background, that sort of thing.
Sure. Well, I was born in North Carolina and
Oh, really?
had a
What
deep
part?
Winston-Salem.
I was
Had a
born in
beautiful.
Shelby.
Oh, really? How
Yeah.
about that? Well, you lost your accent too, it sounds like.
Well, I got a
So
Texas drawl.
I pull mine out in class when I need it. But
There you
born in
go.
North Carolina. I won't give you all the nitty-gritty details in the dash, but uh, is when I grew up, graduating high school, I knew that God was calling me to become what was called a director of Christian education, where I go and serve churches and youth and families. And by the time I graduated college, I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education and a PE major. And so, kind of worked my way up from that, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, where my sweet spot was, and ended up serving churches for about 15 years, doing youth and family ministry. And then, when my own kids were in third and fifth grade, decided I was spending a lot of time nights and weekends with other people's kids, and wanted to make sure I was being a good dad as well. So I went back to the classroom and have been teaching ever since for the past probably 15-ish years, which is how I met Adam. And so I teach AP US history, and I love what I do. I get to teach about our country's history and try to teach the young people to think critically about it, good and bad. And so that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Oh, okay, good deal. And along the way, I imagine you've really touched a lot of young people's, uh, been very instrumental in their life and touched their life, helped them get on the beaten path, the straight and narrow, you might say. Uh, is there one particular young person that you counseled that kind of stands out above the rest, or maybe did the biggest turnaround? Let me put it like that.
Well, there is Adam, but
Oh
Adam,
yeah, that
you're but I'm going to go
full.
back to my very first year of teaching for that. Had a young man, and I don't think he would be embarrassed by this, but his name was Taz, and Taz was super energetic and always energetic in class. He'd bring in toys and stuff from home, and I would confiscate them. I would end up trying to use them in the lesson, crazy stuff. But Taz, he and I just kind of connected, and as he went through the rest of his life, we lost track over time. But I got a letter from him when he was graduating high school. Beautiful, beautiful
Wow.
4-page letter, and giving thanks to me. Of course, it's what God does through us, right? But he was giving thanks to me as well as God for the influence I had on his life, and so it's very, very cool to hear about that. He is now a doctor, and he is not like a medical doctor, like sports medicine. And so, but he's kept me in the loop as he's gone through that whole process, and so I would say Taz is probably one of those kids that you never forget. So,
I hear you. And Adam,
Yeah,
how old were
absolutely.
you? When were you? How old were you when you first met Dennis? Would you say you?
I believe I was around the age of 16 to 17 years old, and when you're in that age, you're going from class to class with books in your hands and a laptop at this point,
Hmm.
and either that or an iPad, and then you're walking around classroom to classroom each day for 7 times a day, and at the end of the day, you get to go home either on a bus or a car or a bike, and it's the great thing about high school is that you get to mingle with all these beautiful people, these new individuals that are all growing and learning together. You find your own groups and stuff like that. I mean, we've all been
Hmm.
through high school. We know how wonderful and lovely it is.
Oh
Is
yeah.
especially, during 2018, I believe in 2017 was the peaks year for
Hmm.
that kind of activities, just learning about music and stuff like that. But mainly, curriculum,
Hmm.
and that is where I met Dennis. Was at Lake Nona High School in junior year, which was 2018 or 17, around that time.
A few years
But no,
back, anyway. Hmm.
yeah, I definitely wanted to ask more about. So you provide like an after-school program, kind of. You stay a little longer for kids that want that extra kind of push. What drove you in the beginning to just kind of spend time after school when you're not necessarily supposed to be there?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. The biggest thing is our curriculum is so fast paced, and we don't have as much time as I would like to just slow down and dive in a little bit more deeply, better understanding, work on that critical thinking. So I just started staying a couple days after school each week to try to invite students who wanted to go deeper or had questions or needed extra help to just stop by, and I was there if they needed it. And so there are a lot of days that nobody showed up. Other days had 10 to 20 show up. So just kind of depended on the day and how
So,
soon the test was coming,
yeah.
things
So
like
how does
that.
let's say for when they don't show up, we just want to know, like, how does that make you feel as a teacher?
Oh, I feel great because that means they're getting it right. No,
That means they know it
no,
all. Yeah, they
yeah.
definitely got it all in their noggins.
Yeah,
Hmm.
no, it
Okay.
really doesn't bother me. Again, Adam, you mentioned 7 classes every single day, and a lot of the students are taking 3, 4, 5 AP classes, and so the pressures and stresses pulling in all different directions. As much as I'd love to think that my class is the most important to everybody, and everybody's going to love history, there are other things in life that at times are more important than that for people. And so if
Hmm.
somebody doesn't show up, it's okay. I mean, hopefully they're getting what they need from another teacher or a study group or whatever they need. So
Hmm.
Speaking of
That's
history,
really.
yeah,
Go ahead.
you definitely have a unique aspect to your. I would say that, and I'm preferencing what I'm about to say is that teachers are a performing based skill. I believe because or they harness that per class, because you are teaching the same thing for that day 7 different times, and
Hmm.
with that, being in history, I found that you have such a unique approach to teaching the students the ways of history, of our American history, different key people in our history. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you introduce key people or points people of interest in your classrooms?
sure, and I'm going to go back to one of the first things you talked about was teaching 7 sections a day of AP US history, teaching the same thing 7 times. And
Mm.
if you think about it, each class is really like it has its own personality. So the students will say, "Do you like our class best?" And the answer is yes. You're my favorite fourth period class, or you're my favorite fifth period class. And so the dad joke humor in there. But it's like having 7 different children, and you love all of them deeply, but each one is unique compared to the others. So, but what I do, I'm a teacher. The state of Florida gave this goofball a teaching certificate, if you can believe that. And so, but I'm really a storyteller. I call myself an edutainer, an educator who entertains. And
Hmm.
so, the more you can do to get the attention of the students and then hopefully bring it to life. So that's where the dressing up as characters comes into play.
Hmm.
There's probably about 6 or 7 I'll do out throughout the course of the year. My favorite is probably Francis Scott Key, who wrote the Star Spangled Banner. And that simply goes back to my own heritage. All of my family was from Baltimore. And when we would go up to visit the grandparents in Baltimore, Granddaddy Rock would take us to two places. One was Fort McHenry, where the Battle of Baltimore took place and the Star Spangled Banner was written, and also then Gettysburg up in Pennsylvania. So two very places kind of near and dear to my heart. So I have a fully authentic Francis Scott Key early 1800s costume, if you will. And so it's kind of fun to be able to explain that to the students and then do the War of 1812 as Francis Scott Key through the lens of his experience. So it's no longer Dennis Rock, it's Francis Scott Key. So as much as possible.
Yeah.
So let's
That's
take
very
a trip
interesting.
Back. Yeah.
Okay. I was just going to say it's very interesting because of the fact that, when you dress the part, you're telling the students there's a story coming because he doesn't look like anyone else in school as far as a teacher goes. And, but before Adam asks his question, I just want Dennis to share in a thought or two for folks out there in TV land that's thinking about being a mentor or they know someone that they could be a good mentor to. What would be your advice to them in that area there?
Oh, fantastic question. I think probably the most important thing is be a good listener. It's not as much you being heard as much as it is you hearing what's going on in the lives of a student. These kids come in and, they may seem to hate being in class, but it may not necessarily be you as the teacher. It may not be the class. It may be what's going on in their home life outside of school, or a boyfriend or a girlfriend problem, or something like that. So just need to be a good listener and try to catch them where they're at and find some little opening to try to be an encouragement to them and be able to encourage them to look for the good and just keep on muscling through whatever you got to muscle through. And let them know they're not alone. They're not alone in this journey.
Yeah. And Adam, I interrupted you. You were going to ask him a question. Do you remember what it was? You're going to make a comment there, or go right ahead. Say anything you want to.
I just wanted to take a trip back to the past a little bit more with you, Dennis, on just kind of enveloping a little more on your teaching methods, which I feel like a lot of mentors out there, when you have a mentee asking you a bunch of questions, trying to learn about the subject matter, and is really, they are getting it, but they need that extra boost of something, right? And this is where I wanted to take a trip back to, I believe, when you were teaching theater. I believe, right?
Actually, I never taught theater, but
Oh.
I've always been a ham. So a lot of people,
Gotcha.
a lot of people think that.
But yeah, it just seems that you have this very theatrical mindset to you, and you have this beautiful, creative attachment to each part of your work and your job,
Thanks.
which is really interesting to me because it makes the entire classroom light up with smiles and bright eyes. The attention span is always there. So the thing I really wanted to dig deep into was, well, where did that really, where did you stem from all this creativity? Who I guess, instilled this into you?
It's funny you asked that because that goes all the way back to my very first year of teaching. I graduated college. I was teaching 5th grade, loving the class, loving the students. It's probably one of my best classes ever. And there was Taz, my boy Taz. And one day he walks in and he's got a roll of aluminum foil, and he's cut some aluminum foil up and he's fashioning himself like an alien space hat. And instead of doing math, I mean, who wouldn't? Come on, math, Taz, And so I confiscated the aluminum foil, confiscated the hat. Then I think I must have been a grown-up Taz because I added some more aluminum foil to it, finished the hat, put it on, and then taught math as if I am like work from orc or whatever type of person. And I got all the math wrong, and the students had to correct me and teach me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of stumbled upon it accidentally. I was trying so hard to be a good teacher that I stumbled upon what
Something
worked
that
for me,
was
what worked for
fairly
me
silly,
naturally.
right?
Yeah. And so when that worked for math, I tried a different character for English. And so then I started going to Goodwill and buying all these stupid like coats and hats and stuff like that. And so I'd become these characters once in a while to teach the class, and the kids would always be eating out of my hand. And so that was just phenomenal. And that as I ended up in U.S. history, it was just natural for to me to continue on with that. And now I have always done theater. I've never taught it, but I've always been involved in theater and loved being creative. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was it just was a natural extension of where I started out in my first year.
Hmm.
So then I could buy a George Washington costume and an Abraham Lincoln costume and bring those stories to life. And the kids come back 10, 12 years later, and they remember the stories and they remember the history because of the way it was told.
That's very interesting because a lot of times when people are, and this is going to be a little bit off the topic, but a lot of times when businesses are wanting to draw in customers, I tell them that facts tell. Because they'll put in an ad, like we all get ads in our emails, we're running to sell 30% off, yada, da, da, da. Facts just tell you or tell the reader, this is what I'm doing. I got something here and I'm running a 30% sale on it and want you to buy it. But see, realistically, for stickability, for people to buy in, people love stories.
Mm-hmm.
So facts tell, but stories sell. And when you're training young people or old people, it doesn't matter. People buy into the story.
Truth.
That's what keeps them in. And when you're doing that with kids, you know, I mean, how many other teachers wore a costume that you're aware of? Probably zero, right?
I know a few, but not
Really?
at my school. Yeah, not at my school.
Mm-hmm.
I did teach a few workshops for the Florida Council of Social Studies a few years back,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the teachers on using costumes and story in the classroom that way. And some of them
Mm-hmm.
actually went and started doing it in their classroom, and have kept in touch with a
Mm.
few of them. And so it's really fun to hear how they have taken their talent
Mm.
and walked the path that they were led to walk with it. Their path
Yeah,
isn't going to be the same as mine, even if it's the same methodology. So
sure.
different characters and stuff like that. But it's been kind of fun hearing from some of those folks.
Yeah, and
That's
also
awesome.
too, that enables the kids to get involved in the story. It really does, and that's really the foundation of it, and that's what makes it stick in their minds. It really is.
Yes,
And
yeah, involving
Yes.
the individuals of our future,
mhm,
our
yeah,
youth, which, yeah, being a youth, it's quite intriguing when you have someone that's, an authoritative figure that you get to look up to, ask a bunch of questions and get things wrong on
hmm
purpose so that you can, when you do go out in the real world and you try to do it, you got all these failures behind your back, which are good because
hmm
they've taught you what to do next rather than, just fail.
oh
So
yeah,
that's super amazing, so characters aside, let's talk about a real person in your life that mentored you, and what they did and how they reacted with you when you were a mentee.
Boy, the one that jumped right off of the page and right back into my life is he was my principal at a small Lutheran school down in Hollywood, Florida. He was my eighth grade teacher. His name is John Gilso, and so he's one who saw the best in students when we weren't showing our best. And
Hmm.
mm,
so he still tried to draw the best out of us.
mm,
And so John actually gave me my first job as school custodian. The custodian had had some health issues, and so he said, "Hey, Dennis, have I got a deal for you?" Whenever John said, "Have I got a deal for you?" You should turn and run because it's usually something pretty big. But so I started out taking the trash out from all the classrooms, 8 classrooms every day. And it kind of expanded each week into something a little bit more. So he gave me some responsibility, some leadership in that regard. And, uh, and so,
Got to put some
he
quarters in the light there.
yeah, I'm just trying
Oh,
to figure this one out here. Let me see.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
okay.
it's probably
There we
dead.
go.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
it popped off a couple minutes ago as well. I'll just try to make sure I get it back on there. So anyway,
Well, that might be my
so
bad.
no,
No worries.
no worries. Hey, it's not a technology my fault this time. Anyway,
Yeah.
so John, and he did this with me. He did it with other young people as well. Have I got a deal for you? He would kind of find what our talents were and try to plug us in a way to serve and be useful and belong. I was part of many school work parties, painting classrooms and scrubbing floors and things like that. Re-waxing floors. He to this day is still a very dear friend, and so much so that when my son was born, we named him John, and
Wow.
so named him after that man he was a significant influence on my development. He was also a significant influence on my faith life, and so that was very important to my wife and I. And so we named my son John and my daughter Julianne after two young ladies that had a significant influence on my wife's faith life. So anyway, so John has impacted thousands of young people over the course of his career, and he officially retired this year. He is now done in the classroom.
Wow.
So
That's amazing. That is
truly
simply
is.
amazing. It really is.
That's the
Great,
type of
inspiring
service
story there. Yeah.
that we all
And when
look
I
for,
think
you know?
about some of my teachers growing up, there are several, and I really believe that these folks come into your life, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a mentor, whether it's an older friend, doesn't matter. These people come into your life to be able to share some of the life's blessings that they've learned. And
Yes,
that is
indeed.
critical, especially in this
Indeed.
world where we see so much doom and gloom. And, people are sick and tired of that. I know I am. I mean, when they locked us all down in 2020, goodness gracious, with the COVID scare. And I
Yeah,
mean,
all we could do, even in that time, it was a solitude and confinement. So a lot of us were separated from our loved ones, taken from all
yeah.
that. To explain what happened, I feel it brings this very large, deep rest with us,
hmm
and that we slept through that entire year,
Yeah.
and a half. So it just, yeah, there's a lot needed right now, especially everyone, that's listening. But more so, what's needed is your participation in your
Yeah.
own history. And this is a
Oh,
little
yeah.
punny, but it does actually mean a lot for when you're crafting your own, essentially destiny. But history is a more, focal point, because with what we have nowadays, with the technologies we have nowadays, with the social media that we have nowadays, this internet, is a permanence, as of right
hmm
now. So we have this beautiful tool, yeah, as frightening and as beautiful as it is. We have this tool to be able to exponentially share all of these beautiful stories with people, of our own accord, and that's why when you go out there and you try to help somebody, take a second look at your comment, or maybe, take a second back to see, what am I helping, type of thing.
hmm
And I
Oh,
guess that
yeah.
will increase the more positive outlook on our social, construct of media at the current rate, while
hmm
also indulging in yourself for your own line of lineage,
hmm
so to speak.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, what are your thoughts currently, Jim, on all that?
Well, I agree with you 100%. As you were talking, the one person keeps coming up to my mind that really made a difference in my life, in my military life, was my drill sergeant.
Mm.
And what was very unique, back, I don't know where it came from.
They've got them hats on, They've got the really tight uniforms on.
Oh yeah,
They're all
they're
standing
strike
straight and
troopers.
tall,
Oh yeah,
and it's
and
too
you
far
know,
down on the front.
oh yeah, I mean they got that Smokey Bear hat on and all. And the thing was, anytime you go in the military, someone knows you're going in the military. Even somebody's grandmother. What do they tell you? Don't volunteer for anything. I don't know where that got started, but it just exploded exponentially, and everybody knew. They didn't know anything about, anything about putting on a combat boot or anything, but they
Well,
they
they
knew
made
if
it.
you go in the military, don't volunteer for anything. Now, also too, the drill sergeants, they are looked upon as just being a mean they're half human and half bulldog and all that. But my drill sergeant in basic, he was Drill Sergeant Blaylock. He was a true super trooper. He was a strike trooper. But what was unique about him was that he never yelled. When he talked, he had a certain tone about him. And he commanded respect because of his presence. Gentlemen, listen up. And we'd listen up. And I never heard him use a four-letter word as far as a curse word. I never really saw him put his hands on anybody. We had a couple of guys in there. The rest of us want to put our hands on them, But, but he was, he taught us about how to be a soldier. He taught us about how to wear the uniform, how to walk tall, not puffed up pride or anything like that, but how to walk with a prideful type of swagger, even as a private. And he let us know that the uniform was who we were. We represented something much bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely.
And that is a key message right there, Dennis, is for every person to know that no matter what they're calling in his life, their mission in life as they travel down the pathway of life is that to understand their calling in life is much bigger than they are. They're there to serve. They're there to use their specific talents, gifts, whatever it might be, to help others along the way. That's why we're here on planet Earth. And
It's a sole purpose. It's a focus.
yeah, I'd
And
like to
and
say one
that's
more thing. I'd like to say one more thing, if I may, Adam. One of the things that we have a problem with as far as being human, we only value what we buy or spend money for. Think about that, because we don't put any value on our intelligence. We take for granted that the oxygen that we breathe, the sunlight that we see. We take for granted the heartbeat in our veins, the breath in our lungs. But the things that money cannot buy, we take for granted. And these were all gifts to us.
Yes.
You think about that. And it's really sad that when you look at yourself and, the things that you really put value on is what you pay money for. A classic example in my life, I used to raise purebred Norwegian elk hounds. Back in the 80s, I could sell those dogs for $250 a pop with papers because they were that good.
Wow.
I had a neighbor, his dog had died, and I told him, just come on over and pick out one of the pups that you want. And I gave it to him. Gave him the papers, everything. And within about 6 months, he was traveling in his motorhome and all that, and he came back and didn't have the dog. I says, well, what happened to the pup? He says, we found somebody else that liked him more than we did, so we let him have him. And on the second case, a friend of mine, his son's dog got bit by a rattlesnake. And I told him, bring your son up and let him pick out a pup. And again, they ended up giving the dog away. And that's why if you just make them pay $5 for that dog, it's got value to them. What does that say to us as about a human? It shows us how misdirected we are. And when we're talking to young people, we need to open up that specialness that money cannot buy. And no thief can ever steal from you. That's the true value of life, love and liberty. And I just want to say one thing here and turn the mic over to Adam there when I get done. My good friend Bill Heinrich, he has wrote the 7 Levels of Truth. That's his book there, and this is Bill's picture here. And I like to always share this on most of my shows, and you folks out there in TV land know what I'm going to say, but it's really important. On the very back of this book, and I'm just going to read the top section there, because Bill said it best. He says, this book is for anyone seeking answers, solutions, and success in life. Now listen up, folks. Your birthright. Think about that. When you're born, you have this birthright. And your birthright is for you to enjoy the abundance of life, to have love, peace, and joy in your life. Those are things that you can't go buy at a store, but yet they're priceless to us.
Right.
And when when you're mentoring someone, Adam, it's so important for, I think, for
you
young people.
You become part of their life.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and for them to feel that they are worthy. And the sky is the limit. The only limitation's in the canyons of your mind, And I don't know why I want to throw that in, because I tell people all the time on a TV show, when we're having a little mini mastermind like this, thoughts come into your mind because there might be one person out there in TV land, whether they're in Indonesia, Pakistan, India, United States, Canada, wherever they might be, there might be that one person out there that needs to hear they are worthy.
Yes. Yes.
I am
Absolutely.
at no words. It's so true, and there's so many people out there in this world that have yet to hear that. To what end they will go to hear it is that drive that we talk about so much, that motivation. At least, mentors were meant to create this mindset that we want to almost I want to say teach but not push, but push a little, because I feel like you still, as a mentor, you need to push just a little bit, to see, are you challenging yourself? Are you creating things? Are you making an effort to do something out of the comfort zone, so to speak, in that subject field, while other people are trying to find the answer to something, and the direct, finite, this is what it is, rather than enjoying and allowing. And that's that difference I do see within mentors challenging their mentees, or creating that mindset that they want their mentee to have. Is that force field of getting it right the first time, or getting it right and not getting it wrong, being able to fail rather than calling it, you're just a failure, using that word just as it's a little, derogatory, and towards your individual that you are going to be taking care of, in a sense of their knowledge.
Adam, if I could build on that real quick.
Yeah, go on.
It's not just a matter of challenging them, but the good mentor is nuanced enough to know when to challenge, when to pull, when to walk beside. And so you got to know the right time to do those different, push, pull, walk beside, so that you can help the person where they're at to get to that next spot that they're trying to get to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's wonderful, and I've never conceptualized that before, of being able to have these different stages where I see it.
Oh yeah. That's really important too, and to let someone know that, hey, it's okay to fail, and then share with them, some of your failures, not a whole bunch of them. You don't want to depress them or anything, but, say, I remember when I thought this was the right thing for me, and I struggled, and it turned out to be a horrible thing for me. But I learned to love myself enough to let it go, because this is something a lot of folks of all ages need to learn. If it's something in the physical world, regardless of what it is, and it's gnawing at you, and you let it gnaw at you, what you've done, you've actually embraced it, and it owns you. Therefore, when you love yourself enough and say, I'm going to love this problem here enough to let it go, because it's above, I can't control it, and I'm not going to let it own me. I'm not going to serve it. I'm just going to say, problem, I love you, but you're not in my life anymore. I'm going to go on. And that takes a tremendous amount of love. And it also builds up the self-esteem of a person on the inside, to let them know they can conquer and overcome. And Dennis, one thing that I've told people, and I've learned this the hard way. I'm a graduate. I got 3 PhDs in the School of Hard Knocks. But the thing about it is that where you are right now, no matter what you're facing, it is the perfect place for you. Because in this place, you're going to learn a lesson, or you're going to be put in a place to help someone learn a lesson, but it's not your final destination. This is just a pit stop down the pathway of life, but you're going to go forward. And when you leave that obstacle behind, you're going to be a better person, and you're going to love yourself more. That's very important. It really is, because so many people let failures shape their life because they don't love themselves enough to let it go.
Mm-hmm. That's a tremendous insight. Tremendous.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I like Neil deGrasse Tyson's quote where there may be an obstacle that relates to the obstacle you were talking about being in front of you. But you choose, just like how particles choose. We can go around it, we can go over it, we can go under it, we can go through sometimes. And being able to differentiate where your capabilities are at, or where your mentees' capabilities are at, and having that establishment is also, I think, an important feature to have in that relationship, because it builds between both of you in a grander scale. You now are able to lean on each other because you understand the weaknesses and strengths. But also, I feel like weakness and strength differ from capability, because when you're capable of doing something, you can overcome. You can overcome those capabilities and gain a strength from that weakness. So it's so versatile to really dive deep. And I bet, even in the classroom, you're, picking up all these different things from all these students on, maybe they're not, paying attention to something, and you kind of get that they may not get it, or the way that everyone else may have gotten it. And, I just want to talk about those kind of moments, I guess, when we're lost, when we're scared, when we're afraid, we don't know something. What's the best kind of advice for someone who just doesn't know? It's not a can't do, but it's a don't know.
I don't know if there's a one-size-fits-all answer to that. And again, I think a lot of that comes out of the relationship you built with your mentee, or in my case, the students. How well do you know the students? Do you know what they're going through? Is this a small issue? My boyfriend and I had a fight, or my girlfriend and I had a fight, or is this something my parents are thinking about splitting up. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
of course, everything. Oh, well, I shouldn't say everything. That's maybe too generalization, but for the students, a lot of these things that pop up, they will let them rule their day,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh yeah.
and so and and so you got to try to help them be able to somehow step back and take a look at it objectively. But again, that all stems out of the relationship you have with them.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, I find
Absolutely.
that is a beautiful part of that.
Mhm.
So,
Also down there on the little marquee, the little ticker tape that I put up there, and I do this a lot on a lot of my shows, if most of them anyway. The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale.
Mm.
I tell people that I was about 17 or 18, is right before I went in the Army. I met Mr. Earl Nightingale. And I knew who it was as soon as I saw him because he was everywhere on the radios and he was in the newspaper. He had that deep, gravelly voice. But I didn't know anything about him. I did not know he was a survivor of the Pearl Harbor attack, December the 7th, 1941. He was on the Arizona. He was one of the few Marines that got off. And the thing that really impressed me about him, he was in his car, he's coming down the road, and he pulls into the gas station where I was at. Back in those days, there were service stations where the people they'd have a wash rack, a lube rack, and they come out and pump your gas. It was a bona fide, real service station back in the 60s. And this big car came in. I think it was a Buick, or maybe it might have been an Oldsmobile. Anyway, it was blue or something. No, it was green. I remember that now. He pulled in there, and the radiator was, just steaming away.
Mm-hmm.
And he got out, and I recognized him. And the owner of the station said, "Well, just pull it over there and let it cool off because that radiator's thumping." It was that hot. If it was thumping, you try to take that cap off, it's going to scald you.
Mm-hmm.
That
that's when
thing is
Mom
really.
told you not to put your hand on the stove.
Oh yeah, yeah. So anyway, what impressed me about him, he walked in and he picked up the payphone on the wall, and he placed a call to whoever he needed to, and he simply said, "I just want to let you know I've got a little car trouble. My car's running hot, and I'm going to be stuck here for a while, but I'll give you a call right before I leave. And I just want to let you know that I won't be able to make our, appointed time." And after he hung up, he sat down, he opened up his briefcase, and he did some things, took some notes or whatever. But he was really calm about the whole situation because that's a perfect example of something that happens in the physical world that you cannot control. And he did not let it destroy his spirit. Now, The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale, I'm not going to tell you what that strangest secret is because I don't want to spoil it for you. But it's about about a half an hour tape. It's actually an MP3 with a stationary picture there. There's no video to it. But you can go to that, The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale on YouTube, and just put your earphones on or whatever. Just lay back and close your eyes and listen to the message. It's really impressive because Earl has a way of really delivering the goods. He gets right down to the nitty gritty. Because when, Dennis, when someone's looking for a counselor or someone to help them in their hour of need, they want someone to just get right down to the nitty gritty. This is a person I like, this is a person I trust, and this person cares about me.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is the foundation in it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a poster on my classroom wall, and I stole it from some other teacher. We're always stealing from each other, and then paraphrase it for myself.
You
But,
borrowed it. You borrowed it.
Sorry, I borrowed it without the intention of returning. But
Yeah.
anyway,
You forgot to return it. You forgot to return it.
that's it. Yeah,
We lost the receipt somewhere.
That's it. Yeah. And in a nutshell, it says that you're not going to remember everything I try to teach you in this classroom. But if you walk out this door and you don't know that you are valuable and loved, then I have failed you as your teacher. Because
Wow.
that's what the most important thing is. This generation, well, all of us need to know that we're valuable and we're loved.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so
Yes.
beyond that, whether you like history or not, I'd love you to love it, but I'm okay if you don't, as long as you know you're valuable and loved. So most important thing.
Exactly. Exactly. Because, when I was in school, I did very well in math, and I was awful in English. I mean, just awful. There's no other way to say it. But a lot of it has to do with the teacher's ability to connect with the class. And I look back now, and I really think I was more bored than anything else, because that's what Dennis was talking about earlier, about bringing people out and bringing students out. And that's what Adam was talking about earlier, about challenging. You give them something to say, hey, you're here, but you could take it up one more bar. Kind of like, when you're going to run and jump over the bar in a gym or something like that, and after you master that, they want to raise it up on you, and then you run into it. And then, well, we got to lower it again,
Yeah. Yeah.
There
But
is actually a wonderful weight training method that is used when people want to understand their physique a little more. And I learned this from a nutritionist who I follow and I went to school with. He was talking about when people do let's say for example the squat rack. They're able to put on a bunch of barbell heavy weights on each side and then do their squats. Well, with each individual bodybuilder or whoever wants to have that specific physique, they're able to do a certain amount until their breaking point. So there's this like 3 levels of understanding of their own physique, where this is my max, this is my mid range, and this is my low range. But in terms of education, you're learning your top performance, you're learning where you're at, and where you were, which if you're anywhere in that middle range, or if you feel that way at all, you're getting to your success point in life, which is, it's super important to know that you're
yeah.
going to improve every single day, and you're going to be better than the person you were yesterday because of your actions. So putting that out there to all these beautiful youths, these wonderful people, and this awesome future that we have going for us, just stick with each other
Sure.
and teach each other, because it is a very important factor in our society that we teach each other our differences, and rather than just squander over learning what is new, rather than being infatuated by what is new, like oogling over
Yeah.
the newest thing. So
We got about 2 minutes left, so I want to give the Dennis a chance for any closing thoughts or ideas or anything you wanted to say that he hadn't had a chance to say since Adam's been talking so much.
I
Well, I just want to thank you both again for the opportunity to be here and do some sharing. And it uplifts me to be able to storytell a little bit. And from listening to both of you share, I am a better person because of that. So thank you both for that.
Oh,
And
well,
everybody
thank
out
you,
on
sir.
TV, well, thank you. For everybody out in TV land, I just want to encourage you to, look around you and remind the people around you that you love them, that they're valuable to you. And if we find 1 or 2 people a day that we tell that to, then and everybody's doing the same thing. It may sound kind of cheesy or corny in some regard, but if we're all looking to build each other up, then what a better place we'd be living in.
Absolutely. And Adam, about 30 seconds, final closing thought there.
It's always great to have what you have and know what you have. So be grateful for that.
Amen. I just love that because it's so true. So many times we're just not grateful. You know, and a classic example I think we all can relate to. We're entitled to good health, and we get a cold or a bug or something like that. We get sick and tired of being sick and tired. You know, you know, and rather than love and embrace what we do have. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Dennis and Adam and myself, we want you to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that your birthright is for you to love yourself and then love others. Because life is a full reflection of your energy. If you project out negative energy, it's going to bring back negative energy on you. It's like the old saying, you reap what you sow. And it's so true. I mean, that's why it's so important to let evil things and mean things and things that upset you, love yourself enough to let it go. That's the closing comments I've got for everyone out there.
You are worthy.
You are worthy.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
Say that in front of the mirror 3 times in the morning. You are worthy. You are worthy. Or I am worthy, I should say. But,
Yeah.
it's very important, And ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time, so thank you so much for tuning in. We sincerely hope, on behalf of Adam and Dennis and myself, we sincerely hope that you and your loved ones are healthy, happy, and blessed in all areas of your life. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Amen.
Be sure and share the show with others.